It had never happened before. He had been emotionally and verbally abusive, and I had left him, and I had gained quite some independence from him and had got my own place and was working 40+ hours a week. I was going to school full-time in college and really just trying to make it on my own. And I guess that he felt if he couldn't have me that nobody would. He followed me into my house, and then when I turned around, he was behind me and he started to beat me.
My name is Detective Jackie Smith. I am a domestic violence detective and I work at the Sully District Station. Well, the domestic violence unit consists of 8 detectives. We have 8 stations within Fairfax County, so each station has one domestic violence detective. We follow up on the cases as best we can. We try to support the victims. When an officer responds to a domestic violence call, makes an arrest, typically they don't have contact with that victim until court, which is about 6 weeks later. So we try to be that contact with the victim to give them information if they need about court, if they have any kind of questions, what should I do, what's going to be happening, and we can kind of guide them with that. We're also there to support the officers by gaining evidence, if we can get pictures of bruises that have developed, if we can get phone records, if we can get email records, anything like that to show a pattern of abuse or to help support the case that the officer is taking to court. We're trying to focus on prosecuting a perpetrator without the victim's cooperation if they're too scared to come forward. So we're encouraging officers to get more information from abusers, to get the basic elements to establish a crime. So when a victim comes to court and they're too scared to talk and they're too scared to report it and they're too scared to follow through, that we're still there to support them. We're still there to hold the abuser accountable for his actions. Perhaps we'll end the cycle there. Well, domestic violence is, in a nutshell, it's physical abuse against a family or household member. So that could be someone's spouse, someone's former spouse. It could be someone that you have a child in common with. It could be someone that you're currently living with or have lived with in the past 12 months. Or it can be a brother or sister, a parent, child, grandparent, or even in-laws that you currently reside with.
That's when the controlling behavior started. I didn't recognize it for what it was at that time. And when I confronted him, he would feign ignorance, like make me feel like I was crazy. Like, what are you talking about? You know, I wouldn't touch your stuff. Like, what do you know, you're crazy. I wouldn't do that. And then I would really start to think, well, maybe I am crazy. Maybe, you know, what is going on here? Because he was just that good. He was charming and manipulative and just had all the characteristics of, he could sell anybody anything. He would just make you believe, you know, anything that he wanted you to believe.
Well, some people don't realize when they are being emotionally abused that is domestic violence. It really is. If someone is constantly being put down, being called stupid, being called names, being called crazy, if someone's yelling at you and threatening you, under the Family Abuse Code, that fits into the definition. So if you don't feel safe and you've never been assaulted and you're not really sure if a protective order is appropriate or if you should call the police, if you're being threatened on a daily basis and you're being put down emotionally, and even sexually. This sexual abuse is another, unfortunately, a big thing that people don't report. It's very underreported because they feel like this is my spouse and it's not rape or it's not sexual abuse, and it is. If it's unwanted, it's rape. If it's unwanted sexual touching, it's against the law. And we encourage people to report that as well. Well, there's really no typical victim of an abuse, but if you could kind of throw it into a category, it would be someone that perhaps has been just beat down mentally by their abuser, someone that feels responsible for their actions. The abuser is going to fit more into a category as someone that maybe grew up in an abusive household, someone that feels that physical abuse is a problem solver, someone that is a master manipulator, not only with their victim, but with the police and with neighbors and friends, and just basically controlling that person in every aspect of their life.
He controlled the way that I dressed. He isolated me from my family. He was much older than I was, and he would tell me things like, you know, your family doesn't care about you. You know, he would say things like, you know, you're a mother now, you can't wear sleeveless shirts, you can't wear your hair down. And I didn't know at the time that that was controlling. I just thought that it was because he cared, and it was more like he was being more like a father figure than a partner. So I just kept feeling like doors were being shut in my face. And then somebody had mentioned to me there was a county attorney who deals with protective orders and domestic violence victims. And I made an appointment to meet with her. And when I met with her, this is the best thing that I ever did.
Well, at one time, you could only get a protective order if you were in a family or household member, be it the spouse, the ex-spouse, the child in common, or cohabitating together. But as of July 1st, 2011, they expanded that to allow anyone to apply for a protective order. So I think their focus in allowing that was to protect dating relationships. Basically, you don't have a child in common, you don't live together, but you have that intimate relationship, but just not defined in the code. So they wanted to protect people in dating relationships, but it also applies to anyone. If you have where you're scared of a coworker, you're scared of a neighbor, but you still have to have that fear. That has to be there, that fear or that of imminent assault or imminent any kind of physical abuse. It still has to be there, but now anyone can apply for a protective order, whether it be in general district court or in juvenile domestic relations court. Well, a good time to call the police is really when you don't feel safe anymore. I get that call a lot of times because people feel like they shouldn't be calling unless something substantial happened. They feel like, well, I don't want to call, I don't want to waste their time. The police will come anytime you call. If you're having a fight with your abuser and it hasn't reached that point, we would much rather be there and calm things down before any assault happens. So we always encourage people to call police if you don't feel safe, if you feel like an assault is imminent, and hopefully we'll be there to resolve the situation, maybe get the parties separated if possible, so that nobody does get hurt.
I don't think that he ever recognized that anything that he did was harmful or wrong in any way to me or to possibly any other woman before me, that he probably did the same thing to.
Well, it's definitely very hard to break the cycle and empower a woman with the little bit of time that we get to spend with them, unfortunately. If you think about what an abuser is doing, constantly manipulating them, constantly making them feel less of a person, and then we're talking to them maybe 2 or 3 times before court. But in that brief time, we try to give them other resources, perhaps counseling that is long-term counseling that's going to make them feel better about themselves. We try to involve other family to support them and let them know that this is not their fault, that nothing they did caused this assault or caused this abuse or any of that, and just explain to them that, you know, while this guy might be telling you that, and I use that term generically, guy, girl, whichever the situation may be, while this abuser is telling you that they love you, we try to explain that they might love you, but it's an unhealthy love. This is not safe for you, this is not safe for your children, and nobody deserves to be treated like that. Everyone deserves to feel safe in their home.
I don't think you ever really get over it. I think you learn to cope and you become a survivor. And you learn, you do one of two things. You can either wallow in it and live in it and continue to let it control you, or for me, I turned around and I tried to invest my time and my energy back into other women who have gone through similar things that I've gone through and help them become empowered and let them know it doesn't matter if you work at McDonald's, it doesn't matter if you work, you know, in a church, it doesn't matter if you work for the federal government, it doesn't matter if you're on food stamps, you're only there for a little bit. You can grow and you can go to school and you can become educated and you can work and you can raise your children by yourself and you can get out of this situation.